Welcome to Happy Homestay. My name is Roger Shinkle. I'm the Director of Happy Homestay and the American Education and Exchange Association. I just want to say welcome to our organization and thank you for hosting students. Homestay families are the backbone of the experience that our students have as they come here to America. Students come from many different places. They come from different educational backgrounds. They come from different family backgrounds, from different cultures, language backgrounds in different countries. They need someone to help them navigate the culture that they're going to be staying in for the next several years. That's our culture here in America. They need someone to train them and help them know what they should do so that they can operate smoothly and really thrive in our culture. They need a culture coach. That's you. Our homestay families are there to help our students and to teach them the way to thrive in American culture. From our experience with hosting international students, we have some tips that will really help you to be happy in the long term and to help our students thrive and be happy in the long term. So we're going to go over some of those things, some of that information and some of those tips that will help you and your students be happy. So we've been bringing international students to America for a long time, and there's one thing that we find that is inevitable. High school students are teenagers. Teenagers are teenagers. Even the best kids will have their teenage days, and we have to be ready to deal with those times. You as a homestay family need to feel empowered to make good decisions for these youngsters. And there's a good rule of thumb. Ask yourself, would I let my own daughter or my own son do this? And if the answer is no, then it's a pretty good bet that we don't want our international student doing that either. So just kind of keep that in mind as a rule of thumb as you're making decisions about what your host student can or cannot do. Let's talk about language for a few minutes because that's always a big issue with our international students. International students come with varying levels of English ability. Now, the students in our program should be able to function in your home and should be able to function in the high school level that they're put into. But when a student, even if a student has good English in their country and they have a certain basic level of English that they need, there's still going to be those deer in the headlight moments when they first arrive, especially when they first arrive, and as they continue to navigate their way through life here in America. For example, students sometimes do what I like to call using a cannon to kill a mosquito. Now, how many people out there have learned a foreign language before? Now, if you have, you know that sometimes you don't know the niceties of how to ask someone something politely. And so you use whatever tools you have at your disposal to get what you need. And probably, for example, I speak Chinese. And when I'm speaking Chinese, sometimes maybe I sound like Tarzan speaking English. Me need something. So that happens sometimes. So when a student says something or requests something, maybe in a way that's not quite the way that we would like them to say it, what I usually do is assume that they're having a linguistic difficulty. Assume that they don't know the right words to be polite, and that is a great moment for you to act as a culture coach. If a student says, "I need go shopping," say, well, here's the way you should say that. Could we go shopping? Could we please go shopping? Correct them. It's good to correct them. That's the only way they're going to learn. And you can model the correct way for them to speak, and that really will help them. There are 4 things that I teach all of our students as we interview them to bring them. I tell them there are 4 secrets to a happy life in America. Please, thank you, I'm sorry, can I help? They've been told these things, and if you will reinforce those manners and reinforce the correct way to say things and the correct way to get the things that you need, that will really help them a lot, not only in their relationship with you and your family, but also in their relationship at school, their relationship in college, all through their lives. That really will be useful to them. Let's talk about how to welcome your student when they first arrive. Sometimes we're tempted to treat our students like a guest when they first arrive, catering to their needs, not really enforcing rules. Oh, I just want to be nice and make sure they feel happy when they get here. That can be a mistake. It's also a mistake to be too ornery and strict when a student just arrived and they're bleary-eyed and jet-lagged. They're probably not ready to sit down and go through all of the list of rules on the very first moment they reach your house. It's great to make them feel welcome. Be welcoming, smile, give them a hug, even if they're not used to that. And give them a tour of the house and help them understand. But it's also important to set some things up very early as solid, fast rules. One of those rules is computer use and where all internet-enabled devices live in your home. As you know, one of our strict rules is that all internet-enabled devices, and that includes computers, iPads, which are computers, and phones, if they have internet, should always stay in a public area of the home. It's good to have a desk set up in that area so when the student arrives you can say, here's where those things go. So from the very first moment you've established that you are going to abide by that rule. It's much easier to set it up right than it is to try and enforce it later. To sum up, a balance between being very welcoming and making them feel at home in your home, but also showing that you are going to have rules and are going to enforce those rules is important to achieve. Let's take a look at a role play. Here's the way some of us might want to greet our students, but it might not be the best. Let's take a look. Hello, what's your name?
Ian.
Ian, before you go anywhere, put away your luggage, sit down and we're going to get some things straight. Sit down. Now there's a lot of rules that you have to understand if you're going to live in my house. First, I don't want you to do this, and I don't want you to do that, and you must never ever do this or that. And this is very important. Look at these rules. I want you to sign this now and make sure that everything is clear on here. You're supposed to cry. And sign this and make sure you understand all of the rules in my house. Although it is important to get the rules straight when our students first arrive, we do have to be welcoming and open with them. There are certain things we should include, but certain things that can wait until tomorrow with a very tired student. Rex!
Yeah.
Welcome to our home. I'm Roger. What's your name?
My name is Rex.
Rex!
Yeah.
Oh, well, we're really glad to have you here. Welcome to our home. Yeah. We want you to be comfortable here. We want you to be comfortable here. So you have your luggage here. That's great. That's here. Can I help you with that?
Oh, no.
You got it?
Yeah.
You got it? Okay. So let's see. Well, your room is upstairs, so we're going to take you upstairs. And are you hungry? Do you want something to eat?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. We'll get something to eat for you in just a minute after we take your luggage upstairs, okay?
Yeah.
All right, that's great. So down here in the living room, you're going to have your computer desk, so all your internet things are here. And then upstairs is your room, and here's the kitchen. I'll show you the living room and the kitchen. Come on, let's go take a look. It's important to make your student feel welcome. At the same time, there are a few things you probably want to get straight right off the bat. But to make them feel welcome and make them feel like they're a part of your family and welcome in your home. Let's talk a little bit about differences in the way students study in different countries. Most of your students will come from countries that use a very stand and deliver style of teaching. What I mean by that is the teacher stands at the front of the room, talks for a semester, then they give a final. The final is your grade. Because of the class sizes involved, 65 students or so in many cases, they really can't practically give students and then grade a lot of homework assignments. So they don't use a lot of homework. For a lot of our international students, the idea that homework on a daily basis is important is kind of a foreign idea. We, as culture coaches, have to help them understand that they need to keep on top of homework. The second part of learning is linguistic learning. Many students have a hard time understanding that they really have to put out personal effort in order to acquire a language. Real language learning comes from listening, and when they come to a word that they don't know, they should find out what it means and write it down. Not necessarily in that order. Sometimes when I was learning Chinese, I would hear a word, I would not know what it was, I would write it down as best I could, and then when I found someone who could help me, I would say, what is this word? How do I use this? During your interactions with your student, if you use a word and they don't know that word, explain it to them. Be a language coach as well as a culture coach. Explain it to them and then try to encourage them to write it down. Part of the learning process is not just learning the word now, but going back and reviewing that word as the days go by. I often tell students, if you review a word 10 times in one day, you'll forget it. If you review a word one time for 10 days, you'll remember it. That's the best way to learn, and students should spend some time each day with flashcards or with vocabulary lists that they've compiled of words that they have personally encountered in the language. They should spend time reviewing those words each day. Please encourage them to do so. It will really help their learning. Let's talk about computer use in the home. Many times families will come to us and say, we're not having the experience that we wanted as a homestay family. We're not having the interaction and the relationship that we really wanted to have with our homestay student. Oftentimes the first question I ask is, where is the computer? Why do I ask that? Well, let me ask you this question. If you're a 15-year-old boy and you're faced with a choice between an awkward conversation in a second language that you're not fully comfortable in, or an unlimited supply of movies, which would you choose? It really is a choice like that. If their computer is in their room all the time, they're going to retreat to that comfort zone. That's one of the main reasons why we ask you to keep computers in a public area of the home. The other reason is for content monitoring. There's many reasons why we ask parents to do that, and it really is important that you do. Many times, students who have that choice between a computer in their room and interacting with the family, they're going to make the wrong choice there. So having that rule in place will help you have a better relationship with your student. Another rule that we ask you to enforce is to keep computer use to a reasonable level. Now, if a student wants to Skype and talk with mom back in China or back in Korea, that's a good thing. It's not a good thing if they're doing it 3 hours a day, every day. They have to let go enough of their relationships back home to develop relationships here in America. And having a limited computer use time, having a limited time for computer use is one of the ways that we help them to do that. An hour a day for homework and having set times for communication with their parents is a good idea. Now, if you have a student who's doing a great job and they're self-monitoring, then don't feel like you have to be the computer police with regards to how much they're talking with their family. But if a student has a problem, then we need to fix it. You know, when it comes to manners, sometimes our students may come up a little short for a variety of reasons. A lot of times, again, it's linguistics. They just don't have the linguistic tools they need to know how to say things exactly the way we would say them. Now, in this case, you have to remember that you are the culture coach. Teach them how to say it. Teach them what to say. And if there's a situation where they say something and you're not quite satisfied, or if they said something in a way that wasn't right, that didn't leave you with the best of feelings, teach them. That's what they need. Having been around the block a few times, I've had some students that had some issues. As a matter of fact, sometimes we're the homestay of last resort. I had a student one time who'd been through a couple of host families for some different reasons. When this student came to our house, we found that she not only didn't use good manners in English, but she really didn't have a good grasp of manners in her own language. She had been in some boarding schools and she just didn't use please, thank you, I'm sorry the way that she should. And we took time with her to train her just the way we would our children. By the time a few weeks, a few months had passed, she was great, she was fine. But she needed to be told, she needed a culture coach. Somebody to teach her the way that she should say things and when she should say those things. And it turned out that it was a great relationship in the end, and she was a really good student. Sometimes our interpersonal relationships with our students are colored by the culture that they come from. We have to strike a balance between understanding that they do come from another culture and being a culture coach to help them operate within our culture. Some good examples might be if your daughter is dressed up for the prom and she looks gorgeous. In our culture, when your daughter walks down the stairs, everybody says, "Oh, look at that, you're so beautiful." Some of our students might not know what to say. They might not say anything. They might feel awkward at that moment. It's a good opportunity to teach them what they should say. Another difference in culture is physical proximity. Maybe yours is a hugging family. That's good. Our students might not be used to that, and they might have to be coached on how to hug, or at least how to tolerate hugs. Handshakes. Many times in many cultures, the handshake is not popular, and so you might get a dead fish handshake. If you're getting a dead fish handshake, teach them how to shake hands properly. All of these are opportunities for teaching and opportunities for them to learn. Here's a typical scenario you might find yourself in as a host family. I'm a typical host father driving his students to school. Okay, here we are at school.
Okay.
Have a nice day.
Okay.
Now at this point I might think to myself, I got up pretty early to bring these students to school, and there's certain things they didn't do. Now what you could do is say, what ingrateful students these are. They didn't even say thank you. Or you might understand that every culture is different, and some students wouldn't think to thank their parents at home and wouldn't think to thank you because culturally they're not aware of that. I've been in this situation, and let me show you what I did. Come back to the car, fellas. Get in the car, boys. Let me tell you something. In our culture, when your homestay father takes you to school, you should say thank you, because I did something for you. That's what we do in our culture to be polite. We always say thank you. So when you get out of the car, I want you to say thank you, have a nice day, because that helps our relationship, okay? And we want to have a good relationship. So let's try it again. Okay, here we are at school.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Yeah, hope you guys have a good day.
Stay off to school.
Okay, see you later. Much better. Here we are at a typical family dinner. Our beautiful homestay mother, our handsome homestay father, and our wonderful homestay son. Let's watch what happens.
How's it going today?
My day is great. How about yours?
Yeah, fun.
So delicious.
Stop!
Now obviously our homestay son has a little bit to learn about table manners in America. There are a few different ways that we can handle this. One is to endure in in silence. But that doesn't help us, and it doesn't help the student. The student needs to learn how to operate in our culture. And so it's time to talk with the student and say, son, we chew with our mouth closed here. Demonstrate, be very clear, be very frank. The point here is, if something is bothering you, correct it. You wouldn't let your son go on and on doing something that really bothered you and that you knew was going to cause him problems in his public life going forward. It's not only going to make you feel better about what's happening, it's a great benefit to the student to learn what they should and should not do in our culture. Let's talk about a very important topic when it comes to hosting students: food. Food is very important to everyone. It's important to us, it's important to students, it's important to parents, it's important to everyone. We have to strike that balance again between being a culture coach and teaching them about our foods, and sometimes bringing in a little bit of familiarity, especially when students have first come to America and they're struggling with the food that we eat here. For example, I love Thai food. Thai food is one of my favorite kinds of food. And when I go to Thailand, I look forward to eating all the delicious food that's there. But about the third or fourth day of 3 meals a day of Thai food, I'm ready for something a little more familiar. Even though I love that food, I'm ready for something a little more like what I usually eat. It's the same way with our students. A little bit of familiar food to them will really help them to feel more at home. Let me give you a few tips on food. Let's talk about hot food versus cold food. Now, for our American culture, sandwiches are great. We eat them a lot. For a lot of Asian cultures particularly, a sandwich, a cold food, is something that they're okay with, but they'd probably rather eat something warm. We find with our own students that making extra food for dinner and letting them pack leftovers that they can heat up in a microwave may be preferable for them to packing a fresh cold sandwich. So an investment in a little bit of Tupperware or something like that can really pay off because it's also a pretty cheap way to make lunches. Another good tip if you're hosting a student from Asia is to buy a rice cooker. If you get one of the good rice cookers with the flip top, those will cook rice and keep it warm and fresh for up to 3 days. That's a great source of food that's familiar to them and it's very inexpensive for you. Let's talk about rice for a few minutes. There are many different varieties of rice. Different cultures have their different kinds of rice that they're more familiar with. Many times our rice here is sort of a fluffy Uncle Ben sort of a stuff. Usually Asian cultures are more familiar with sticky rice. A jasmine rice, a calrose is also a rice that they would find acceptable. If you go to Costco, you can buy a 50-pound bag of calrose for a very reasonable price, and that'll feed a lot of kids for a long time. Here's a warning. Some of our students have never cooked anything ever before. Some of them, when you bring them into your home and welcome them and say, "Oh, this food's in the pantry, here's the refrigerator, eat anything you want," they look and see a desert because they don't know how to prepare anything that they see. Sometimes our boys think, well, I know how to fry an egg, so they fry eggs. And sometimes they ruin your good frying pan. I would suggest that you go to Goodwill or a thrift store and buy a frying pan that you don't mind being destroyed and say, "This is your frying pan," until they get proficient in the kitchen. Teaching your student to cook can be a wonderful experience. If you're getting ready to make dinner, talk to them and say, "Would you like to help me make dinner?" They should say yes. Spending that time together preparing dinner not only is a good opportunity for them to learn how to cook something, it's also a good opportunity for them to talk with you. It develops language skills for them, they can learn new words, and it helps to develop that family relationship that you want and that they need. Well, we hope you can use some of these tips as you begin your journey in hosting. I'm sure you're going to have a wonderful time with your student. Remember, you're there to teach them. You're their culture coach. And with love, you can guide them through the process of becoming part of your family and really knowing how to operate in our culture here and to really be successful here in America. Thank you very much.